Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, history hit video on Ridley Scott breaking down scenes from Napoleon, which I'm excited about. Yeah, hope you guys are doing well. The link to the original video, top of the description as always. Let's get into it.
Napoleon is one of the most highly anticipated movies coming to our theatres this November. The real story of one man who would define an era.
I led the French victory at Toulon.
As important as the characters in this movie are the battles. I want to delve into the history and the shooting process of these large-scale battle scenes. And who better to guide me through it than the director himself, multi-award-winning filmmaker Sir Ridley Scott.
He did Gladiator, right? Fantastic movie.
You feel incredibly lucky that you created these epic films.
Every time my team is, I have to think this is the best of business. It's the first time I came being out in the field, and he said, "Who are all these people?" I said, "This is all for you, mate."
Did you end up rooting for Napoleon?
Rooting for Napoleon. That's funny because does he mean it in the same but whenever I watch Napoleonic Wars, like history videos, I always find myself kind of, it's history, but you can't help sometimes. You root for a side to win, I guess.
Ridley, thanks for coming on. Why Napoleon and why now? The big man.
In many respects, he's one of the great curiosities in history, any time, anywhere. There's 400 books being written about Napoleon Bonaparte. 400. So clearly, he's one of the more interesting historical figures you could possibly imagine, both as a military, politician, leader, emperor, everything.
There's so many versions of Napoleon, aren't there? There's the sort of the man that everyone's screaming, "Vive l'Empereur." There is the lover. There is the. But you guys have teased out a kind of version of Napoleon I think is fascinating. He's a little bit awkward sometimes, isn't he?
Well, this comes from Joachim, because I'd done one version of the script, and then I could only think of Joachim. He was always the man. I passed it by and said, "What do you think?" And he couldn't believe that I wanted to play Napoleon Bonaparte. That was the initial reaction. And then little by little, we crept into it. Then I had a script which I could send to him. And then with Joachim, and as the artist he is, there was a lot to say. And so we sat down for many days discussing who this man may be, because he said, "I don't see him on the page. Who was he?"
And you told me you still storyboard.
I would love to be in the room while such a big director and actor like them two are talking about getting into a role like Napoleon. Just kind of hearing them talk about that would be so cool.
Well, I paid. Who was he?
And you told me you still storyboard
Well, I drifted back into, because I really had a good hand and could really draw and kind of really paint, but I suddenly realized I should use it to prepare my film. So instead of, because when you delegate a storyboard, there's a lot of time explaining what you want to do, and frankly, I could draw it faster than explaining it. So eventually I stopped storyboard and would draw it myself. So Napoleon's storyboard is this thick.
I was going to say, that must have been that in itself is a
well, it's not stick figures, you're literally drawing close-up, medium shot, wide shot. So sometimes I haven't got the location, so I'll draw the location, then look at the drawing, then go find the location.
That in itself sounds like a work that should be in the British Library.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
No, it's pretty good stuff. No, it's good stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so and we should say, when I heard you were doing Napoleon, I was like, this is very exciting. My goodness me, is it going to be the story of 1815 or the Austerlitz campaign? No, you did the whole thing.
No.
Why did you want to do the whole thing? Because that's a massive undertaking.
Well, why not? The whole point of doing it is the scale of his undertaking, what he managed to achieve. I can't think of any leader today that has achieved as much.
Yeah, Napoleon.
So obviously, I don't know what. At the end of the day, I'm not really going to mind. Like I don't have a lot of either joy or despair. Right, I'm gonna like it no matter what. Okay, but it's not like like I love the movie Braveheart. Okay, I love history, but I love the movie Braveheart. I know Braveheart takes a lot of leniency. Is that the word? In the historical accuracy, and it's more of just a film, and you don't have to be historically accurate for me to enjoy it. That's just me. I mean, I'm not expecting a documentary. Okay, if I want to see a documentary about Napoleon, I can watch a documentary about Napoleon, which I have. But I just wonder, like, trying to encapsulate the whole thing. Obviously, the issue, or what I'm worried about, is it just being not historical at all. You know, like I don't need to see this, you know, great romance side of Napoleon, and then, like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that obviously he's doing the whole thing, so you have to be more general, and so I'm gonna like it. I feel like no matter what, it's gonna be very difficult for me to not like this movie. I know that's not the case for a lot of people who really love history. They want to see it accurate. If they see giant inaccuracies, they're gonna be really mad. That's not my thought going into it. So I want to see a good movie. I want to be entertained, and I don't want to see Napoleon as just this stereotypical movie character. Like, so okay.
And it's the Napoleon of movies.
You know what I mean?
Napoleon has achieved as much.
Yeah, Napoleon is the Napoleon of movies.
Napoleon is the Napoleon of military leaders,
Yeah.
I think. Because also, I think he had a great sense of architecture, a sense of plan. He was a great politician. He was a great bureaucrat. And he elevated the bureaucracy and order of France dramatically.
Everyone around here.
What is this costume you have on?
This is my uniform. I led the French victory at Toulon.
Napoleon was a talented gunnery officer.
Before I forget, just this is what I mean. I won't mind if there's some historical inaccuracies, but I just hope I can tell this is clearly Napoleon and not just like an insert for any kind of heroic figure in this time period. So does that make sense?
And his first opportunity came was they had a big problem of the English were blockading ports. The biggest port to blockade was Toulon. He went to Toulon to find that there's a general in charge.
Fast forward if you want. I shouldn't have stopped where I did.
Toulon?
Napoleon was a talented gunnery officer. And his first opportunity came was they had a big problem of the English were blockading ports. The biggest port to blockade was Toulon. He went to Toulon to find that there's a general in charge, was a court painter. And of all things, he was talented at painting fruit. So he went to the base and saw complete neglect, lack of leadership, and just took over.
Those in power only see me as a brute, unfit for higher office.
You're playing Napoleon here at this point. He's nervous. He's nervous at this point.
Oh,
his first,
scared to death.
Yeah, this is the point at which he either walks onto the great stage of history or he stumbles and falls off it. Yeah.
And he got, I think he must have gone through many feelings at that moment of fear of failure.
Yeah.
Once you go this far, it's better to die in the battlefield than fail.
And you show Napoleon in the thick of the fighting. He does actually get bayoneted in the leg, I think, in Toulon,
it's all accurate. What happened is all true.
What we're looking at here is not CGI.
No, it's all real.
But we live in a world now where everyone's talking about AI and doing everything fake. I mean, your career will mark the golden age of massive films.
I think you feel when it's fake. When it's AI, you know it's somehow artificial. All of this is real shooting. We shot this in Malta, which I've been there. Malta, in a funny kind of way, is an architectural gem. Really, architecture is medieval, Renaissance. It's stunning. Medina is incredible.
I was trying to film on a tall ship, and it's the first time I heard about your movie, and everyone, you couldn't find a tall ship.
Yeah.
Cornwall, no tall ships. They said
it was
Ridley
right there in
Scott's got
port.
them. He said everyone who's got a tall ship. Ridley's basically saying, put out the back call. Anyone with a tall ship, come to Malta.
That's so awesome. And in my opinion, I hope I'm not going too far, but it's the reason I love Lord of the Rings. You know, Lord of the Rings, it had CGI, big battles, but it also didn't, like in like following the Uruk-hai or others. Like it's clearly a guy, and I feel like I would prefer, you know, like when you if you're at a play and like they're like sets that are clearly fake. You're at a play; it's not a movie, so there's no everything's real. It's not CGI, and I would almost prefer that level of obvious fakeness, but it's not CGI, to CGI that looks really good. And I'm not saying that you have to. I just hope it doesn't turn into like The Hobbit versus Lord of the Rings. The Hobbit maybe looked a lot better in some ways, but it's all CGI, and Lord of the Rings. I was talking too much.
Doesn't he know we're trying to make a little podcast?
Aren't they great?
I mean, they're gorgeous.
I promise you brilliant successes.
We are discovered.
Good.
Wait!
Right there, you see that down there? That's an airport down below. That's an
airport?
airfield.
Oh, right.
But the wooden is married to the wooden foreground where I shot Marx Aurelius on Gladiator.
Oh, okay, this is where you shot the Gladiator.
Same place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you
Oh, wow.
feel incredibly lucky that you created these epic films?
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
What's it like on location? You're like, I cannot believe all these people are here.
Well, no, the first one we turned up in Berlin, at the big house. We shot a lot of the stuff in the big house. And there's a unit of 900 personnel there. And it's the first time Joaquin had been out in the field. And he said, who are all these people? I said, this is all for you, mate.
Yeah, you're
really?
right.
I said, yeah.
As a filmmaker, I can't believe anyone could. This would be the dream, wouldn't it? To be sending cavalry
Well, no,
soldiers.
I try and take my stride. You can't be afraid. You got to go out there and say, no, stop. You got to be able to say, stop, it's wrong, then adjust it. But, you know, I run a film a bit like a board meeting. When you're approaching the movie, the production, the actual shooting, the whole unit's about 900 personnel. There's 40 HOD, so we sit around a boardroom table. I'll say, right, page 1, problem? No, page 2, problem. What's the problem? Have you talked to him? Well, talk to him. Page 3. That's the way you do it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you'll come to things that really need proper discussion with us. That's how you find out what the real problems are.
This is that when they discover they're on the ice. This is an instant classic. This is an extraordinary scene on the big screen, isn't it? With
So
falling through the ice.
we cut a large area about the size of 2 swimming pools. You go in the tank at Pinewood, you shoot the stuff.
Okay.
Digital, the cannonballs hitting the water, I love. That's digital.
Yeah. What about historical accuracy? What if when the historian goes, sorry, Sir Ridley, it didn't quite happen like that? You go, listen.
I love how we did the nerd voice. And again, that's not going to be me. There's going to be a lot of people, but it can be as historically accurate as Braveheart. And if it's a good movie, I'm going to love it. A lot of people aren't going to feel that way, but that's how I feel.
What about historical accuracy? What if when the historian goes, sorry, Sir Ridley, it didn't quite happen like that? You go, listen, I've done enough with you.
Well,
you have to have artistic license,
I
right?
would say, how did you know were you there? They go.
I remember listening to like Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about like he like called or like he spoke to James Cameron about like, hey, James Cameron, did you know actually in the scene where Jack, what's her name, the lead in Titanic, Jack and Rose are in the water. When they look up, that's actually like the southern hemisphere sky and not that. And it's like, oh, shove off. Like, so you're never going to please everyone. And if someone comes up to you like right after, like, actually, unless it's a really big something wrong, like, oh, that actually wasn't the right battle, it was this battle. I understand that.
No, right. So exactly. So I said, you know, Rod had 400 books written about him. So it means maybe the first one was the most accurate. The next one was already doing a version of the writer.
Yeah.
By the time you get to 399, guess what? A lot of speculation.
And how close are you to that? Are you shouting at that guy? Come on, man.
No. What I do, because I'm always, this is about 11 cameras.
Exactly. Well.
So I have to be in a trailer with 11 monitors bigger than that.
Okay.
And I'm watching everything. So I was a very good camera operator. So I can talk to an operator as an operator, say, you missed this out, you're too slow, too fast. Before you go, you're too wide, you go tighter.
Okay.
So, and my real film school was advertising.
Yeah.
So if you do 2,500 commercials personally, and I'm on the camera every day, it's a great school.
This standard bearer galloping away is such a great man.
I'm not built like other men. All of Europe is uniting forces against me.
This is it. We're gonna portray Waterloo.
Bizarrely, the two armies are almost 2 miles apart.
Forming the square. This is brilliant. And you've got the King's colour, you've got the right flags there. I mean, it's all happening.
And this is all real.
I mean, that is epic.
But
You've seen this a million times. Are you still is it still? What's it like when you watch this now?
No, I always think, well, I'm in a room, in a tube with all these monitors. No one in there, I don't want any advice.
Really?
No, I want to follow my own sword.
Okay.
So I say, stop. Now I'd say,
I love that attitude.
Come in. So we bring them all in, and if we're getting clogged up, we'll bring the operators into the trailer. Say, right, watch this. There. Readjust. So you've got stunts, you've got operators, and we readjust the shot, and then they go back and do it. It's very efficient. My team is, I have to think, is the best in the business.
Do you go to bed at night thinking, I cannot believe I've just engaged an entire generation in the Roman Empire, or now in Napoleon? There's going to be people out there.
Well, I'm quietly proud of it. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean,
By the way, I love Ridley Scott's attitude. I've never heard him speak before, and he seems the perfect amount of confidence and but not too brashly, like annoyingly confident. And it takes, I guess, just special people to do roles like a director in a movie where you have to have the attitude of like, yeah, I'll fall on my own sword. You have to know what you're doing, and really cool.
Well, I'm quietly proud of it. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, I'm thrilled that I'm still allowed to do it. I'm still capable of doing it, but I'm still allowed to do it. I love it.
Did you end up rooting for Napoleon?
Well, anybody vulnerable, you tend to root for them.
Okay.
And I found Joachim, one of his biggest, most powerful things that he has is he's a very sympathetic man.
Yeah.
And he's vulnerable.
He's vulnerable.
So even playing a bastard, even when he's playing the joke, he's vulnerable. Yeah. I mean, it's the best temptation of a monster who's vulnerable.
But and that's the interesting thing about Napoleon is but also he can play. Joaquin Phoenix plays him both as a genius and as uncertain and vulnerable and
completely.
Insecure. Yeah, it's very.
That's very important because that makes him more interesting, I thought. And we knew by enough research, when you look at the research and understand his hesitation, he had to be involved.
Cut off their retreat!
It was really amazing to watch him touch the really dark places. I could really see him tapping into that kind of psyche.
My destiny is more powerful than my will.
I wanted to do something beyond just the battles, because action can get boring.
Yeah.
Sex in the bedroom can get boring. So it had to be what was Napoleon's need for this woman. So he was obsessed with her, and I think she was his soulmate, but she wasn't reciprocating. She didn't really love him, I don't think. And I think because of that, he made it love him. It made him love her more. He was obsessed with her. Yeah. And so it shows in his letters, which are sometimes juvenilely loving or sexual, they're kind of embarrassing to read. It's like, oh my God, you really wrote this? She never read them. There were bundles of them in her bedroom. She never opened them, which says something. She didn't really care. And then later she began, once he said to her, we must be divorced because you cannot give me a successor. So in a way it was tragic for him. And it became at that moment tragic for her because she lost her security. But he looked after her so well. The generosity was enormous.
You think you're great? You are just a tiny little brute that is nothing without me.
But in the publicity, you also use the word tyrant. So, like, are you worried that this is going to be swept into the kind of cultural good? Is Napoleon good? Was he bad? How should we feel about him?
I think he was great and brutal. You have to be. He makes some pretty tough decisions and choices, right? And so, how many people would die during his battles? And how many civilians suffered along the way? It's like addressing Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius, I think, became guilty as he got older about what he'd done. You can't be that powerful having not done a lot of massive damage.
True. I wanted to say something that's important. I'm gonna remember it.
Along the way. And during his battles, how many civilians suffered?
Oh yeah, the suffering of civilians really only comes up in modern history. Like when I learn about World War I, maybe, definitely World War II. But I feel like it's given me a false idea of what wars before World War II and, you know, Nazi Germany and that was specifically like not just the scale, but the brutality of World War II. It just kind of, whether or not you're told that directly, you just get the feeling from watching stuff. A lot of that has to do, I'm sure, with, I know it has to, with cameras and recordings of speech or whatnot, or just the fact that it was, and the fact that it was much closer to now. And so, I mean, I'm sure, you know, not many World War II veterans are alive left, I'm sure, but you grew up being around some people who were in the war, but I'd never hear about that when learning about other wars. About, you know, I have no idea what the civilian suffering or the death toll of civilians in Napoleon-era Europe. I'm sure there's a stat on it, but I would really wish there was a bit more so I could put the suffering and the brutality of 20th century wars, 21st century wars into perspective. How evil are people nowadays compared to back then? What are the differences? And so, yeah, it's just weird how, like, when we tend to think of the most evil people in history, they all happen to have been born in you know, the late 1800s, early 1900s, and lived in the 1900s. And there's just no way that can be that. So, yeah,
along the way. It's like addressing Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius, I think, became guilty as he got older about what he'd done. You can't be that powerful having not done a lot of massive damage.
So how do you want people to leave this epic, like they've come out of the movie theatre, they are staggering out of the movie theatre. How do you want them to feel when they leave? Do you want them to be fanboys of Napoleon? Do you want them to think about the nature of power and fate?
I think everything. Elated by watching such a spectacle that is, I try to make as real as possible. And hopefully it's as accurate, and therefore, I hesitate to use the word because it's dangerous. Because people say, educational, I don't want to see it. That's boring. Anything educational is boring. Okay. But not only that, you've just walked out learning something.
You wonder whether in the future of film, who knows, but whether they'll ever have this many people replicating Waterloo ever again. Or
You know,
important.
not that you've just walked out learning something.
Okay, yes. What Gladiator did for me, and what Braveheart did for me as well, and is what those movies do for me is they give me something to think about when hearing stuff about ancient Rome, about what was it, 1100s, 1200s Scotland, or other movies. Even if they're not completely historically accurate, they put an image in my head, color image, obviously image in my head of what it was like, and it makes me want to learn a bit more than if that isn't in my head. And so I think as long as Napoleon is that, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to disappoint me here. Okay, as long as it does that, which it undoubtedly will, it just needs to have the aura of the time period. I guess is whether or not that just have a correct aura of what it was probably like, depictions of stuff visually, and that would be a big deal for me. And I think that's pretty much guaranteed to happen when you have a director like this, an actor like Joaquin Phoenix, and a story. It will provide that to younger people and not just younger people, but everyone, at least to like have something to think about of like, oh, Napoleon, it was during this time with this kind of fighting and these kind of weapons, and yeah, I think that is my standard for whether or not I'm gonna like this movie, and it's pretty much impossible not to reach that standard. I think as long as everything looks pretty appropriate for the period.
I wonder whether in the future of film, who knows, but whether they'll ever have this many people replicating Waterloo ever again, or whether it's going to be tempted to do it.
I hope so. I hope it doesn't go away.
Well, I hope so.
I think everyone loves to have a bedtime story, don't they?
Ridley Scott, thank you very much indeed. I really enjoyed that.
That was super awesome. Great video.
I must warn you, I will not lead the second in command. I will win by fire. I am destined for greatness. I found the crown of France in the gutter and placed it atop my own head.
Great video. Interesting song choice. I didn't like it at very first when I heard it because it just sounded like too modern or something. I'm not saying you have to. Well, I guess I am saying, but it's growing on me. I kind of like the soundtrack there. So, and again, like you said, you can't just have action, 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 or sex, 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 or you can't just have like you need to make it fun to watch, not just historically accurate. And so, listening to history buffs solely trying to make it as historically accurate as possible on a movie like this, or Gladiator, Braveheart, just that's a mistake. Go and form a documentary. I'm not saying it shouldn't, like there's a very big difference than if a small part of a flag standard on the battlefield didn't have the correct thing on it to this isn't even Austerlitz, this is something else, right? A different battle. That's a big deal, right? If like, wait, no, this isn't the right battle. Yeah, okay, great. But other stuff, if you want to have fun pointing out, fine. But if you point those things out as problems for the movie, I'm just not on the same thought level as you on this movie. So really cool. Yeah, I'm excited. Great video. Great listening to Ridley Scott. He seems like an awesome guy, awesome director. And yeah, I hope you guys are doing well. I would appreciate any answers to any of the questions I might have asked, or any comments in general. I'd love to see them, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.